Adam stood in front of the mirror in the small bedroom he shared with his daughter, adjusting the same old tie he had worn for 5 years. The apartment was quiet except for the soft rustling of Emily, his 9-year-old daughter, taping a paper snowflake on the window. She turned and looked at her dad with warm, hopeful eyes. "You look nice, Daddy," she said, her voice soft but full of pride. Adam chuckled nervously. "It's just a company party, sweetheart. Nothing big." But Emily shook her head seriously. "It is big. You work hard. You deserve fun too." Adam had never been to a corporate event. As a janitor, he spent his nights mopping floors and fixing stuck vending machines, not socializing with executives. But tonight, he had been invited, only because the HR team insisted all employees attend the annual holiday celebration. Emily insisted he go, gently straightening his collar the way her mother used to before she passed away. Adam paused, watching her tiny hands work with so much care, and suddenly the moment felt heavier, meaningful. This wasn't about a party anymore. This was about showing Emily that no matter your job, you still mattered. He took a deep breath. "All right, kiddo. I'll go." Emily's smile blossomed instantly. She grabbed a small candy cane from her pocket and slipped it into his coat. "For courage," she whispered. Adam laughed, hugged her tightly, and kissed the top of her head. As he walked out the door, her voice followed him, "Remember, Daddy, you belong there too." And for the first time in a long time, he let himself believe she might be right. When Adam arrived at the rooftop venue, he instantly felt like he'd stepped into another world, one filled with shimmering lights, velvet dresses, crisp suits, and laughter that sounded rehearsed. Soft jazz floated through the air as servers glided around with trays of champagne. Adam tucked his hands into his pockets and stayed near the railing, watching the city lights instead of the crowd. Colleagues he recognized only from a distance rushed past him, too busy talking to people with higher titles. Some gave him polite nods that lasted less than a second. Others looked right through him like he wasn't even there. This wasn't new. Working as a janitor meant being part of the building but never part of the people. He was familiar with footsteps, not faces. He sipped the punch he had picked because it was free, standing silently as groups formed circles of conversation around him but never included him. Every laugh felt louder. Every handshake more confident. Every clink of a champagne glass reminded him of how different his world was compared to theirs. He exhaled slowly, thinking about Emily's words. "You belong there too." But standing among polished shoes and glowing confidence, he felt like a smudge on a glass wall, visible only when someone decided to notice the dirt. A loud cheer erupted near the dance floor as executives toasted the end of a successful year. Adam clapped gently, though no one noticed. Part of him wanted to slip out quietly, return home, and tell Emily it was a boring night. But something in his daughter's voice kept him rooted. Maybe he didn't belong, yet. But he wasn't leaving. Not tonight. Half an hour later, the music shifted, and suddenly whispers rippled across the room. Adam looked around and saw Claire Reynolds, the CEO, stumbling slightly as she tried to steady herself on a table. Claire was known for her fierce aura, sharp speeches, strict rules, and an intimidating confidence that left employees terrified to breathe wrong around her. But tonight, her eyes were glazed, her voice too loud, and her laugh uncomfortably unfiltered. She raised her glass to no one in particular, almost spilling the champagne on her sequin dress. A few guests forced awkward smiles and backed away. Others exchanged judgmental smirks, pretending not to stare while clearly enjoying the spectacle. Not one person stepped forward to help her. Adam's stomach twisted. He watched as Claire reached for a chair that shifted under her weight. "Careful," he whispered instinctively, though she couldn't hear him from across the room. A group of executives snickered behind their hands. Someone even pulled out a phone, subtly trying to record. That bothered him. Even when he didn't like someone, watching them slip into humiliation felt wrong. And Claire looked human. Not the fierce CEO who walked through hallways like a storm, but a tired, hurting woman drowning in silence while surrounded by people. Claire tried to lean against a pillar but missed it slightly, letting out a frustrated sigh. No one approached her. No one even made eye contact. Adam stepped back, conflicted. It's none of my business, he thought. She'd never help me. But deep inside, decency tugged at him. Emily's kindness echoed in his mind. Help people, even when it's not easy. He took a slow, steady breath. And the decision began forming before he even realized it. Finally, unable to ignore it any longer, Adam moved toward Claire. His steps were hesitant, almost nervous. She didn't notice him until he was close enough to speak. "Ma'am, are you all right?" he said gently. Claire blinked at him, squinting as if trying to place his face. You're the janitor," she slurred, pointing at him with shaky precision. There was no malice in her tone, just tired confusion. "Yes, ma'am." "Adam," he replied softly. He expected embarrassment or dismissal, but instead she leaned toward him slightly, trusting his steadiness in her unsteadiness. "I think you should head home," he said. "No one else thought so," she murmured bitterly. Adam glanced around. She was right. Everyone had distanced themselves, afraid of being responsible. He draped her coat carefully around her shoulders, guiding her with slow, cautious steps. Claire didn't resist. She seemed relieved, even grateful, though her pride wouldn't let her say it out loud. At the elevator, she leaned against the wall, closing her eyes as if the world had finally stopped spinning. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly. "This isn't your job." Adam shrugged simply. "Because you needed help. That's enough." Something softened in her face, a moment of clarity breaking through the haze. No one had talked to her like that in years. No fear. No agenda. Just care. When the elevator doors opened, he supported her gently, making sure she stayed balanced. As they walked out of the building toward the parking lot, he realized the weight of what he was doing, helping the one person who barely knew he existed. And yet, in that moment, he wasn't the janitor. He was the only person who didn't walk away. The car ride was wrapped in a strange, heavy silence, not uncomfortable, just full of unspoken truths between two people who lived in the same world but never shared a corner of it. Claire leaned her head back, breathing slowly, clearly fighting dizziness and exhaustion. Adam drove carefully, glancing at her occasionally, making sure she didn't pass out. Halfway through the drive, she spoke softly, "Everyone at that party, they were embarrassed of me." Her voice cracked. Not from alcohol, from emotion. Adam wasn't used to hearing powerful people sound small. He didn't interrupt. He let her talk. "I didn't mean to drink that much," she continued. "I just needed the noise to stop for a while." Adam nodded, understanding more than she realized. "Sometimes life gets loud," he said. "Too loud." Claire opened her eyes and studied him, the man she walked past every day without even looking up. "You see things, don't you? More than people think." He smiled faintly. "When you work in the background, you notice the foreground better." For the first time, she laughed, a soft, genuine laugh that had nothing to do with the alcohol. She looked out the window, her expression thoughtful. "No one in that room would have helped me," she whispered. "I would've," Adam said quietly. "I did." Their eyes met for a brief moment, not janitor and CEO, but two human beings who had carried burdens too heavy for too long. As the car approached her neighborhood, Claire straightened her posture, not wanting to look weak. But the truth was already shared. Something had shifted. A fragile connection, unlikely and unexpected, had taken root. When Adam pulled up in front of Claire's elegant townhouse, the night felt colder, quieter. Claire took a deep breath, steadying herself before opening the door. The porch light cast a soft glow over her face, revealing a vulnerability she never showed at work. Adam got out and walked around to help her. She placed her hand gently on his arm, not because she needed support, but because she didn't want the moment to end abruptly. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice sincere and unguarded. He nodded. "Just wanted to make sure you got home safe." She hesitated at the bottom of her steps, as though choosing her next words carefully. "Tomorrow, if I don't remember everything, just know I appreciate what you did tonight." Her eyes searched his, softer than he'd ever seen. The woman feared across the company looked, for once, like someone who desperately needed to be seen beyond her title. Adam didn't know what to say. He simply offered a warm, respectful smile. Claire slowly climbed the steps, pausing once more at her door. She looked back at him, a long, lingering look that held gratitude, confusion, and something unexpectedly warm. When she disappeared inside, Adam stood there for a moment, processing everything. He had walked into the party feeling invisible. He drove home knowing someone finally saw him. As he started the car, he touched the candy cane Emily had slipped into his pocket. "I guess it worked," he murmured with a small smile. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, whether Claire would remember him, acknowledge him, or pretend nothing happened. But one thing was clear. Tonight changed something. For him. For her. And for whatever destiny had quietly begun between them.